In October 1923, 7 men set out into the very heart of the Siberian mountains. None of them ever came back. Rescuers found an empty camp, untouched food supplies, and tracks that simply vanished in the middle of the snow. But the most disturbing discovery was the diary of the expedition leader. On its final page, only a single sentence was written. "We see the camp, but there are other versions of us already standing there." For the next 56 years, all records of the expedition were believed to be destroyed. Until 1979, when a team of geologists discovered a metal container deep in the mountains. Inside were photographic plates taken by the missing crew, and on the very last photo were the geologists themselves, even though that picture was taken 50 years before they were born. In the autumn of 1923, the Geological Committee organized a small research team under the codename SEVA-12. Their mission was to map an uncharted valley near the eastern Sayan Mountains. Local hunters called this place the Dark Rift. The team was led by 39-year-old geologist Alexander Volkov. Along with him were a cartographer, a doctor, a radio operator, a photographer, and 2 local guides. 7 men in total. Officially, the expedition was searching for rare mineral deposits. However, archived documents reveal a second hidden objective. Volkov was instructed to investigate reports of extreme magnetic anomalies. Near the Dark Rift, compasses didn't point north. They pointed straight down into the ground. Before departure, one of the guides, Nikolai Arbatov, sent a letter to his wife.
He wrote,
"The locals refuse to go past a river. They say in these mountains, you must never call a man by his name, because the mountain might memorize his voice."
At first, the journey went smoothly. Every 3 days, the radio operator sent brief updates. Weather calm, group condition stable, on schedule. But on October 17th, the tone of the telegrams changed. The operator reported hearing footsteps circling the camp at night, yet no tracks could be found in the snow.
2 days later came another message.
Observing lights on the northern ridge. They are moving against the wind. Volkov believes it is a natural phenomenon.
In their 4th week, the expedition reached a place marked on no map, a narrow valley completely enclosed by black jagged cliffs. According to Volkov's notes, the snow here looked gray, as if mixed with ash. But what unsettled the men most was the silence. No birds, no animal tracks. Even the wind seemed to die the moment it entered the valley. That evening, the photographer took a group shot outside the tent, 7 men standing side by side. However, after developing the plate, Volkov noticed an 8th figure. It stood just a few yards behind the camp. Tall, unnaturally thin, its face completely featureless. The photographer swore no one was standing there when the shutter clicked. The next morning, one of the guides was gone. His belongings remained inside the tent. His boots were by his cot. His heavy coat was still hanging on the rope. The man had simply vanished into thin air. Volkov ordered an immediate search. Hours later, the crew found footprints in the deep snow, but they didn't lead away from the camp. They led toward it. The bare footmarks started near a bare cliff and ended at the tent door, as if someone had walked barefoot into the camp during the night.
In his diary, the expedition doctor wrote,
"There are 7 of us again today, but I am no longer certain that the man who returned is actually Arbatov."
After returning, the guide barely spoke. He didn't recognize his own gear. He didn't remember his wife's name. He just stared constantly at the mountains.
When asked what happened out there, he only repeated one phrase.
"They are waiting for us to fall asleep."
Despite the guide's strange behavior, Volkov refused to turn back. Perhaps he feared failing his mission, or perhaps he was already unable to leave. On October 22nd, the group found a narrow pass through the rock face. Beyond it lay a second valley, perfectly circular. and right in the middle of it sat a camp. 3 tents, an extinguished fire, wooden crates, identical to the ones Expedition Sever 12 was carrying. At first, they thought they had stumbled upon another research team, but inside the tents were their own personal items. Volkov's mug with a chipped handle, the doctor's medical kit, a camera bearing the exact serial number as the one hanging around the photographer's neck. Inside one of the crates, they found a diary. It belonged to Volkov. The first few pages matched the entries he had already written, but the remaining pages contained text he had not yet penned. The future entries detailed how the radio operator would die by the northern cliff, how the photographer would vanish after sunset, and how Arbatov would attack the doctor in his sleep. Volkov ordered the diary to be burned immediately, but the radio operator secretly tore out a few pages. That night he tried to reach base command. The airwaves were free of static. Instead, coming through his headphones was his own voice.
The voice was repeating a transmission the operator had never sent.
Sever 12 to base. Only 4 of us left. Do not send help. It is using our voices.
Seconds later, the signal cut out. And then, a scream echoed from the northern cliff. They found the operator dead, in the exact spot described in the diary. Panicked, Volkov decided to abandon the valley, but the narrow pass they had entered through was gone. In its place stood a solid wall of black stone. The final events were reconstructed from diary fragments and damaged photographic plates. On the night of October 24th, every mechanical watch in the camp stopped at precisely 3:17 a.m. At that exact moment, the men heard voices outside their tents. The voices belonged to themselves. The voices outside begged to be let in. Some were crying, others claimed they knew the way home. The doctor wrote that Arbatov stood up, walked to the exit, and began speaking to the voices. He was speaking in a language no one recognized. The photographer tried to grab him. At that instant, every lamp went out. When they managed to strike a match, Arbatov and the photographer were gone. Only the camera lay on the snow floor. Its final photo plate captured an image of 2 camps. One was their own. The other sat on the far side of the valley, and standing near the second camp were 7 human figures.
On the back of the plate, Volkov wrote his last words.
They mirror everything we do, at first with a delay. Now, they move before we do.
The final entry in the diary was written in a completely different handwriting.
We see the camp, but there are other versions of us already standing there. In the morning, they are going home.
11 days later, a rescue team reached the last known location of Expedition Sever 12. The camp was empty, food supplies untouched, rifles still in their crates. In the snow, a single trail of footprints led away from the tents toward the cliff wall, and then the tracks simply stopped, not at a precipice, not at a river, just right in the middle of a flat, unbroken field of snow. The official investigation closed in the spring of 1924, ruling the cause of death as an avalanche. Despite zero evidence of snowslides in the area, the files were classified and archived. Decades later, authorities claimed the records were destroyed in a fire. The story of Sever 12 faded into a local ghost tale until August 1979. A team of Soviet geologists working near the Dark Rift uncovered a sealed brass box. Inside were Volkov's diary, a compass, and 9 photographic plates. Forensic experts confirmed the glass plates were manufactured in the early 1920s. The first 8 photos depicted the original 1923 expedition. The camp, the mountains, the Black Valley, and that tall figure, standing closer to the camera in every frame. But the 9th plate was different. It showed the 5 geologists who found the box in 1979, standing near their own tent, dressed in the exact gear they wore into the valley. and standing behind them were 7 blurred figures. Scratched onto the back of the glass was a date, October 25th, 1923. Right after reporting the discovery over the radio, the 1979 geology team went silent. 3 days later, rescuers found their campsite empty. Watches stopped at 3:17 a.m., and in the snow were footprints of 12 people. 7 pairs of tracks led to the camp from the mountains. 5 pair led back out. The container and photos vanished once again into classified archives. However, a fragment of that last radio transmission allegedly survived. At the very end of the recording, after the geologists stopped speaking, a faint voice can be heard.
We made it back after all. Just not in our time.
What really happened in the Dark Rift? An unknown natural anomaly? A mass hallucination? Or a place where past and future collide? Perhaps Expedition Sever 12 truly perished in those mountains. Or perhaps the people who walked out of that valley are still living among us today. Only they aren't us anymore.